everyone, and we're so glad you could join us this morning, Sunday, May 19th, 2019. We are recording from the Plainfield Christian Science Church, Independent, Plainfield, New Jersey, the United States of America, and we warmly welcome you to our roundtable discussion. And we'll start today with our morning prayer.
This is Mrs. Eddy's prayer given at the Massachusetts Metaphysical College. It can be found in Richard Oakes' book, Mary Baker Eddy's 6 Days of Revelation, on page 171. O my God, I offer as a consecrated gift upon thine altar a heart dedicated to thy service, lips speaking only words of charity, love, and truth, thoughts striving to be only the true thoughts of the mind of God. Help me to endure unto the end, strong in the faith, powerful in the truth, all the influence that I can bring to bear, all the force of tongue or pen that is mine, I offer in thy service. May heaven help, consecrate, and accept.
Thank you. And miscellaneous writings. Mary Baker Eddy. We today in this classroom are enough to convert the world if we are of one mind. For then the whole world will feel the influence of this mind, as when the earth was without form, and mind spake, form appeared. Okay, we'll start with our watching point.
Watch number 237. Watch lest you accept the suggestion that it wearies you to think scientifically, and after you have done it for a while, you must find rest in relapsing into negative human thinking. We must reverse this absurd claim and establish the fact that mental weariness comes from absorbing mortal mind's false thinking, and that we find complete rest in the reflection of divine mind. On page 60 of our church manual by Mrs. Eddy, we find the following, quote, a Christian scientist is not fatigued by prayer, by reading the scriptures, or the Christian Science textbook. Amusement or idleness is weariness. Truth and love rest the weary and heavy laden. End quote.
Thank you. Any comments on that today? You know, this annuls the comment that I sometimes hear being made. It's so hard. It's so hard to control my thinking. Well, it might seem that way at first, just because you're used to entertaining negative, fearful, sound-pulling suggestions. But once you become aware of this and reverse it and hear the enduring the good and the true, it isn't hard. How hard can it be? Is thinking one thought so much more difficult than thinking another thought? Who tells you that it's hard? Yeah, animal magnetism, devil, whatever you want to call it, error. It's not God telling you, but God say, Mary, this is hard work. Thinking good thoughts is really, really hard.
It's easier to think bad thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead. Think the bad thoughts. It's much easier. No, of course not. So, when that thought comes to you, know the truth. This is what, again, don't accept the little foxes spoil the vine. You accept all these little thoughts. So, know the truth. Know that it's your divine right to hear God's voice. It's your divine right to feel trust, love, and goodness in your heart, not the negative. Okay. Our subject today, mortals and immortals. Golden text, 1 Corinthians. Now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. Neither doth corruption inherit incorruption. So Linda, on the forum, those of you who follow our forum, Linda wrote very, very good quote.
You need to read the quote from John Piper.
Yes, do you know who he is?
He's a minister. He does Bible studies on this website. And so he was referring to mixing Christianity with the secular world and how. So this is a quote written by him, part of it. Quote, "The greatest danger today in all the talk about faith-based social organizations is that Christians will begin to think about their faith the way the world does. The world does not think of Christianity as divine revelation, but as human opinion. If you let the secular mind determine your starting point and then define the categories for explaining Christianity, then you will promote the erroneous notion that the gospel of Jesus Christ is not an authoritative revelation from God that is true and necessary, but instead an activity of man that is useful," and then I added, "or not."
That is very good. Anyone want to do that?
Who wrote that?
Probably the minister.
He does Bible studies.
So yesterday we had a Bible study. Didn't hear it, you should listen, on thou shalt not commit adultery. And what did Mrs. Eddy say about adulterate our religion? Did you?
Well, she uses a lot, mostly the adulterate is used with the way we use her science, and not to adulterate her science. It's on it's in the chapter Teaching Christian Science on page 457. She says, "Other works which have borrowed from this book," she's referring to Science and Health, the few scriptures, "without giving it credit, have adulterated this science." It's referenced in different places.
Thank you. You see, when we mix things and get lackadaisical, we lose the thrust of this science, the power of it. And if you don't respect the Christ for what he is, you don't see, some people question the resurrection, that if it really happened, or you question the healing. If you see Mrs. Eddy as just some nice woman that did some pleasant thing and isn't it nice, it erodes. It erodes, and then you wonder why you have no faith or why you have no healing in your life. Well, it goes with this golden text. It goes with this quote. You're adulterating it. You are weakening it. You are mixing it. You are, you're only doing it to yourself and in your own thought, because ultimately you can't adulterate the truth. It's impossible. But in your own thought, you are. So this is why it is so important that we understand this science to be a science, that we understand who Mrs. Eddy was, and we see her as the woman in the apocalypse. We see Christ Jesus as who he was, is. They both are and still are. And in doing this, you'll feel that power come, because it's the truth, and the truth cannot be adulterated. You cannot lessen it.
So let's make it sure we're really clear on this, because is this talking about flesh and blood?
Golden text.
The golden text? Now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. Neither doth corruption inherit incorruption. talking about flesh and blood.
Immortality.
It's talking about a state of thought. It's talking about your consciousness.
Mortal mind.
It's talking about the way you think. And what it's saying is, you can't believe that there is life, truth, intelligence, or substance in matter that's represented by flesh or blood. That's not where life, truth, intelligence, or substance is. This is what this is saying. If you believe that, then you're not believing that God is spirit and that God is all, and that you are his spiritual image and likeness. You can't believe both. You can't serve God and mammon.
And this is the secular mind, isn't it? Because this is what most people believe, that your life is in matter. And when you have problems with your body, well, then your life's in jeopardy. But you know that you're not two of you, not this mortal thing that has to be. You're not two of you, there's the one. You're the immortal, you're spiritual, and your life is God. And in knowing that, really knowing it and understanding it, your body will reflect the truth of it. They said Wednesday, we are the temple of the living God. That incorporate that into your life, knowing it, not just occasionally when you feel like it, but always.
So this is a challenge, isn't it? Because, everything around you says, well, wait a minute, we're all human, we're all material, we're all, your body, you got to take care of your body, you got to give it drugs, you got to do that. And it's all pandering to this belief. And what does Mrs. Eddy say? I mean, how did Jesus prove that to be false? He proved it over and over again. Others have proved it. Many of us have proved it. What does Mrs. Eddy say about Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead? It wasn't that his body died and then came back. But he, true Lazarus, never died because his life was never in his body.
In knowing this, it's been helpful to just also affirm that nothing can reverse that truth. Nothing can interfere with it. It's been helpful for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a challenge for each one of us to remember 24 hours a day who and what we really are.
I remember a couple weeks ago I was sitting out on the deck and just listening to the birds in the backyard and stuff, and I was thinking, what is the problem, that I'm having? And I was just sitting there, and it just came to me that I had been adding God to my life, my own personal life, instead of giving that life to God. And it was just really comforting, that sense of knowing that I go around all day long and doing. I don't ask God for anything until I get into trouble, But if I would just wake up in the morning and give that whole day to God and stay in that mind all day long, then the day is a lot easier. I'm not tired at the end of the day. I'm doing everything according to what God wants me to do. Throwing Him on top of my...
That's exactly right. That's absolutely right. That's it. That's why we start our day with God is life, God is my life, God is the only pure and perfect life. God is not some chain you pull when you need Him, when you're in trouble, which is how a lot of people think of Him. He is your life. And you can't war against him. You've got to give that life to him. And when you do that, it flows. If you don't do it, you're in constant friction. Your body is in constant friction. You're in agitation, and you're going to feel it until you stop. So thank you, Luann. That's the right revelation. So let it flow, and let you know that God is your life. You are the temple of the living God. His plan for you will unfold during the day. And his plan is always wonderful, whatever it is. It can be challenging. It's not that you won't be without challenges, but they will be defeated through his power.
Love what one of the early workers said. You may have challenges, but look what you have to meet it with.
Yes.
I love that.
Yep. Yep. We forget that sometimes. We let the challenges overwhelm us.
Well, many times Mr. Said he has told us first commandment. So
Absolutely. And then the responsive reading, let's go into that a little bit because it supports this golden text. And remember, too, the Bible's saying that the carnal mind is at enmity with God. So when you are in this wrong mind, when you are thinking the negative, fearful, doubtful thoughts, you're at enmity. What is enmity?
Like an enemy.
Yeah.
yeah.
Opposition to,
Mm-hmm.
against.
You don't mean to be, most likely. If you're a Christian Scientist, you should know better, but a lot of people don't know better. So don't be at enmity. Don't entertain those carnal thoughts that are listed later in the lesson. So, see. Carol, you want to read the first two verses of the responsive reading?
Hear me when I call, O God of my righteousness. Thou hast enlarged me when I was in distress. Have mercy upon me and hear my prayer. O ye sons of men, how long will ye turn my glory into shame? How long will ye love vanity and seek after leasing?
Okay. What does it mean to, thou hast enlarged me when I was in distress? What does that mean?
Stronger.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Raise me up. Fix my problems. Given me faith, hope, confidence.
Give me light.
Yeah.
I know when I was at my lowest before coming here, I felt really small and really just incapable of making any change. So that's what I think of enlarging and beyond all that.
Thank you. That's a good way. Powers.
It opens up my thought.
Yes. When you're in your distress, again, back to trials or proofs of God's care, you come out better, stronger for it. That's all that can happen. And then you think, O sons of men, how long will ye turn my glory into shame? That's incredibly sad. What does that mean?
Well, how many continually thank God for the good that they have each day? Or how many forget about it and they start complaining about this and that and everything else that's going wrong in their life?
And oftentimes blaming God. That's turning his glory into shame. That is really taking the Lord's name in vain. We've talked about when you attribute things like that to him. It was God's will that some terrible thing happened. I don't think so. Not the God we know. That's old theology. How awful to speak of him in that way, to think of him in that way. He's turning his glory into shame. And it's very common. If you ever hear it, you should correct it. Ours is a God of love.
I think also for all the good that comes, if we don't give the glory to him, then we're really saying, well, somebody else did it or I did it, and that's turning his glory into shame.
Thank you very much. That in Deuteronomy where it says, well, my hands, my power, I did all this. I got the wealth. All me, I did it. Thank you. And once you do that, then yes, you're not thanking God, and you're in very dangerous territory. So it's all like, okay, let's see what's going to happen next month or next year. You going to be able to do all this yourself? Are you that great? Usually you end up falling flat on your face, and I know because I've done it. If you don't give God the glory for the good you have in your life, you are in very shaky territory. You think you did it? Huh. Well, man, not
generic.
He's incapable of doing all this. And we see people falling flat on their face time and time again when they get all puffed up and think they do it.
I got this is Wendy. It was Alexia's last day of high school this past Friday, and I got an email from one of her teachers, and she said, I know you know this, but I wanted to say that your daughter is a wonderfully sweet, kind, and pleasant person. I've enjoyed every minute of my time with her, both in class and homeroom. You should be very proud. And it was nice to hear that, but I instantly had to say to myself, it's not me. It's not me to be proud. It's the glory to God, and the glory be to God for his guidance with her. And
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy. That's
because that puts it all on solid ground, doesn't it?
Yeah.
yes.
We're proud that God did it.
Mhm.
Yeah, because what happens? I mean, what kind of thought could it possibly be when someone thinks, I'm really smart, or I'm really capable, or I'm really good, or I've created something? And when you leave God out of it, there's this underlying fear that you're going to lose it. That it's going to, and with every good there comes bad, that's where all of that stuff comes from. It's the belief that I've created it. I've found it. I've done it. Without God, there's no solid ground for it. And there's always this fear. I mean, there are people around who have a lot, who have accomplished a lot, and if they don't have a solid ground in God, they spend a lot of time and money on security systems to protect what they think they have for fear of losing it.
And it can still be lost in a moment. And many times it is. There's no security.
This is George. I'm really enjoying this conversation. And I think there is at the risk of sounding simplistic, I think there is a pretty simple antidote to this. I would say it is a major struggle, what we're talking about, which is simply being grateful. Because if we're grateful and acknowledge being grateful to God for all that we have, it really protects us from thinking that it's all ours because of how wonderful we are and how creative we are and how brilliant we are and how whatever. Because being grateful is an acknowledgement that it's not about us. It's about His love and His blessing and His goodness toward us.
Exactly.
Thank you. That is absolutely true. It's an instant connection with God. You're acknowledging that it's His presence and power that has done these things. And thank you, Wendy, too, because it's a big trap for parents when they become proud of their children and think they've created.
Mm-hmm.
Then they get worried. Oh, what's going to happen? Well, because it's a godless existence. God created them. God cares for them. I read something I thought was so sweet about, if you're worried about your children, young or old, and you're not with them, you can't be with them for some reason, think of who is with them. Who is their chaperone? I thought, what a great word. Who is their chaperone? Who? God. God. So picture that. Your children have God as their chaperone. That's much better than you, honey bunch. It's the best chaperone there ever could be. But you have to know it and trust your children. If you don't know it and you worry, it's a form of malpractice. But thou greatly fearest hath come upon me. So let God be their chaperone. Trust them to God. Know that God created them, and not just know this in the case of children. Know it about everybody, everywhere, whoever you might be concerned with. So, and George lives this truth, because I spent a little time with him, and I don't know whether I've ever known anyone who is more grateful than George. He thanks God and God's representatives for everything. It's a very beautiful, holy way to live.
And safe.
And safe. And a joy to be with. Because it's not fun someone who's the other way and ungrateful and complaining and always seeing the hole in the donut. That's just not a lot of fun to spend time with that type of person or to be that type of person. So what is it? Okay, so we got turn my glory into shame. How long will ye love vanity? What does that mean?
Yeah, like how you love when people praise you for things.
Thank you.
Thinking that you've done the work yourself, and you look for those people to say, "Oh, that's beautiful," or "You did that well," or to me that's the thing. You look for that response from others.
Anybody ever thought that it'd be nice if I had a bigger house or a bigger, faster car or a handsomer husband? Whenever you love the effect of God's good, you're loving vanity. What does the Bible say about the love of money? Yeah. I mean, money serves a useful divine purpose. But to love it instead of God.
If you love it, you're serving it. And that's, no.
Right.
Wherever your treasure is, there is your heart also.
Mm-hmm.
The preacher in Ecclesiastes, all was vanity and vexation of spirit. He got everything he wanted. He searched for it, he got it, and he was still unhappy. All is vanity and vexation of spirit.
Because he was tempted to love the effect of God's goodness instead of loving God, source of all goodness.
One of the commentaries says that it's love of what is worthless. Love of emptiness.
Emptiness.
You see, you'll find that when you love these things. They are worthless. I mean, what brings you joy? If you get some lovely object, what brings you joy is not the object bring you joy. No, it's your gratitude, your love. It's that's what brings you joy.
One of the sentences in the definition of vanity in the 1828 dictionary says, "Vanity is the food of fools."
Good.
Well, it is.
Oh, it is. And then the last, and seek Lying.
looked it up. I wanted to know. Figured it wasn't leasing a building.
And pursuing a lie. Seeking after a lie. Pursuing a lie. Pursuing that which is untrue. Pursuing that which is not biblically correct or scientifically correct, as we would say. So, if you're seeking a lie, there you are, and you won't find any fulfillment or happiness. But if you turn that around, and what's the opposite of seeking a lie?
Truth.
Seeking the truth. Be seekers of truth. And then the next one, stand in awe and sin not, commune with your own heart on your bed and be still, and then offer the sacrifices of righteousness and put your trust in the Lord. And Joanne spoke on that and gave the definition of righteousness, which I love in that 1828 dictionary. Purity of heart, rectitude of life, conformity to the divine law. And she speaks how that affected her and how you can change from being unrighteous to righteous. I think she's here today, or I'd have her speak. But anyone want to comment on any of this?
The only way to live. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, what does it mean to sacrifice? The sacrifice of righteousness. Well, what is it talking about here? I mean, it's a practical man.
Give it up.
Give up what?
Unrighteous.
Give up the material and the mortal.
Or give up whatever isn't right. I mean, this is not, I mean, this is pretty straightforward stuff. What are we told to sacrifice?
Those false beliefs.
Whatever is wrong. Whatever isn't right. Whatever isn't right with God. And it's for our own good, isn't it? When we pursue a lie, when we pursue something that isn't true, I mean, hello, how good is that? Where does it lead you? Well, it doesn't lead you into a good place.
And what we've been speaking about is the mortal concept of ourselves, and that has to be seen and given up. That's the old man. It's not the truth about you. It seems to be true, but it's not. The old man with its beliefs, mortality. And as we get into the rest of the lesson, which deals a lot with condemnation, which many people have trouble with, that's the only thing that gets condemned. I looked up condemn in the concordance, Mr. Betty's work. All that gets condemned is evil, which is no part of man, no part of you. And it needs to be condemned, doesn't it? And what is it to be condemned?
Like having something put on you for good, that you did wrong or a punishment, and then you suffer for it. But it's like it's attached to you for good in the world. You've been condemned. You've been accused of something.
So you've been found guilty and you're cast out.
Of condemned.
Which is what we should do to anything that isn't right.
Yes.
All the lies about man, we condemn.
Makes me think of a condemned building has been tagged for destruction.
Yeah, that's a good.
Don't go in it.
That's right. That's an excellent way to think of it.
So every thought that you think about yourself that is not right, not what God made, every limiting thought that you think about yourself or anybody else, you have to learn to condemn it. And we should.
I think I used to condemn the good, by telling myself, well, I'm not this, or I'm not good enough for this, or something like that. You're condemning the good instead of those thoughts that make you want to think that you're not good. Or
how many of us think, well, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve the good that God has for me. When you limit yourself like that, God's speaking to you. God has all good for all of us. There's no limit to the good that God has for all of us. Jesus knew it clearly. Mrs. Eddy learned it clearly. Lots of people have learned it clearly and have been able to heal the sick and raise the dead. We can too. That's what's so wonderful about this.
It is wonderful to start learning that. I had a real, when I first came, I had a kind of a hard time thinking of the golden rule, in the way that it's supposed to be. So I would think, okay, I'm going to do unto others as I would have them do unto my kids. But I'm grateful that has changed now.
Oh yeah, because as you grow spiritually, you learn what God has for you, and it's no longer human. It's divine thing.
when you learn what God is, you can't say I'm not worthy or I have no identity or all those bad things about yourself. Once you learn what God is.
Yeah, once you know what God is, then you start to know who you are.
Then you're condemning God.
Yes.
Have no worth,
exactly.
No value.
Turn His glory to shame.
Thank you. That's very good.
Very good.
Yes. You turn His glory to shame when you speak of yourself that way. And that's why, when you don't know better, okay, but as a Christian Scientist, when you're still going on, oh, I'm no good, I can't think straight, or my mind is cuckoo, or I hear all kinds of things. Hello, come on. You're identifying with the error. Go ahead.
No, if you really think that if I say that, I'm saying that about God, that kind of wakes me up,
Yeah.
If I am the image and likeness, of course, everything I'm admitting for myself has to be some reflection of God. So I better not do all this limiting. And I love where Mrs. Evans, I believe, is where I learned it, when she says, when you write your name, do say unlimited. That has been a help over the years.
She say that, yes, right. Unlimited.
Mrs. Eddy, in the textbook, says, we know no more of man than we know of God. I think that's a quote. But that's the same thing. You can't really know yourself unless you know something about God. When you do, you see yourself as His image and likeness. Then the whole world opens up. Heaven opens up to you.
And then the important thing is to keep seeing it as God working. Don't get heady and start thinking you did it.
Don't love the effect of God's love for you.
I like to think that I'm just a lump of clay. Here I am, Lord.
Just
fashion me into something wonderful.
What is the sign?
It's beautiful to put that trust in God.
What is the sign you have on your...
In the potter's hand.
In the potter's hand. Isn't that beautiful? That's what she has. We're thinking of maybe putting some pictures of Luann's pottery shop online because it's a very holy thing.
It's a great place. She built it from scratch to serve a holy purpose. Neighbors. And she is.
That's after Eric told her that she didn't have the funds, she didn't have the health, she didn't have anything to do it with. So she did what the human sense would be called the impossible. But to God's spiritual sense, it was very possible. And her motive was unselfish.
Just let let God lead me all the way.
Step by step. Wonderful. And the doors kept opening.
Yeah. And now people that come in are asking about Christian Science. They're asking for books and websites. Wonderful.
And that was her prayer.
I've given away quite a few magazines, and they want to sit and talk about it while we're working on ceramics. And it's nothing I did. I just let it unfold. I just let God's plan unfold. I didn't force the issue. If they didn't ask for a magazine, I didn't just hand them one. But they asked for it. It's wonderful.
And they see the tremendous change in Luann.
Yeah.
Her life was the only sermon they heard.
Yeah, her life was the only sermon they heard. And so she let God use her. She was in the potter's hand. God has used her.
And most importantly, when they do say a lot of things like, "Oh, you've changed," and you look so much happier, and I just say it was all God. It was all God. All of this is God. God built the shop. God changed me. God lifted me up. I had no hand. And I make sure that I tell them that every time somebody wants to praise me for any work that I've done. It's just like, I know, like, there was no way I was doing it myself. The things that got accomplished, that couldn't have been accomplished if I thought that I was doing the work. So I make sure that they understand that it was all God.
That you trusted him.
Trusted.
And it wasn't always easy. This bloody step, and sometimes nights of crying, and sometimes going down to the last minute thinking she didn't have enough money or enough physical strength or what else, and then it would come. But she had a very pure motive. And quite wonderful. We must all think of ourselves as in the potter's hand, molding us, shaping us.
And the promise is, with God, all things are possible. That's the beauty of it.
I have that sign hanging above my bedroom door, so when I wake up in the morning, it's facing me. It says, "With God, all things are possible." And I have to walk through that. So get out of the bed. Make sure I'm going to see it one way or the other. Yeah. Right there.
I think too, when we sometimes it's easier to see that when we're coming out of a really bad situation. And I know as Jeremy and Luann and some others have testified, that there was just so much stark pain and things were in a sense palpably terrible. But that Romans 12, where it says that we're to be transformed by the renewing of our mind, which is our spiritual service of worship, or we could say that's to be our ongoing sacrifice to God, is to be constantly transformed by the renewing of our mind. Part of the beauty of that is that applies to every single Christian person, without exception. And I just think that's just one of the most beautiful things about God, is that no matter where we are, who we are, what we've done, where we've come from, how old we are, how privileged we are, how unprivileged we are all in a position to do that, to take our lives and let them be transformed in a way that shows people that we love him and shows people who he is. And I don't know, that just kind of blows me away. Whether it's Mary Beth and Gary or Luann or myself or Suzanne or Florence, the countless people who phone in and who share. This is something that applies to every single one of us, no matter where we are. I just think that's a pretty good thing.
Beautiful.
No, that's right.
That is beautiful. Thanks, George.
Yeah. That's because it's the truth about every one of us. No matter how long we've lived in a dream, the truth is always there, and it's never too late.
All is his creation, so why not?
Exactly.
They're for everyone. Yeah.
And you see, when you say you can't do it because of your background, or you're too old, or you're too young, or you're too, those are all excuses. And Mrs. Eddy has says excuses are intolerable. You've got to catch that. And sometimes it's a cover-up for just being lazy, or you don't want to do it. Anyone can do this. And thank you, George. So if you don't do it, then that's your choice.
It's your choice. We make choices.
We do. So instead of complaining, what say?
No, I said at times it's your self-will that's making you, it's an excuse. I can't do it because you want to do something else that you want to do.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
In that too.
We're always trusting in something. It's good to recognize what it is that we're trusting in.
And that the beautiful story of the Magdalene. And no one condemned her. And Christ said, neither do I condemn thee. Neither do I condemn thee. And then, go and sin no more. And that has to be, because, you can't claim all these things. If you're sinning, you can't go around saying, I'm a child of God, while you're doing all kinds of things. In Parthen's forum, he lists selfishness, sensuality, sexuality, actually from the Blue Book, I believe. But all of those things are, as Luann said earlier, it's a sense of self that we have to give up. And all of that is self and the belief of mortal life in matter, mortality. And if it led you to happiness, I would say, go for it. But it simply does not. And I love something very wonderful happened. Carol, we needed to fill up. We're finishing our May edition of The Liberator, and we needed something to fill it up. So Carol found the most beautiful poem I think I've ever heard from a CS journal in 1887. And then at the same time, what were you doing, Louis?
I was working on a painting on my own. I hadn't been advised to what was going into the magazine or anything. I just started a painting at home on my own.
And it matches perfectly with this, which shows the one mind operating. And it's going to be a beautiful magazine. And I'm going to read the poem because it's now my favorite poem, and I have a lot of favorite poems. And it's by L.E.L., so I don't know who that is, but A Lesson in Rhyme. Forbid them not, said the Master, but let them come unto me. And so they clustered around him, meek peasant of Galilee. They miss not the pomp or glory to older hearts so dear, for they heard the cadence of heaven in his tones so strong and clear. They saw the wonderful city whose streets were of glistening gold, for they caught the beautiful vision of one shepherd, one flock, one fold. He gathered them all in his bosom, free henceforth from sorrow and sin, into that heavenly kingdom where discords enter not in. Again, Christ's Spirit is brooding over a weary world. The banners of peace are flying, never on earth to be furled. And again, the clear little children, with innocent hearts and young, join in the grand old anthem, the stars of the morning sung. On such as these descendeth, with blessing the healing dove. Open are they to receive it, knowing its author is love. Ye who would bar Christian science with prejudice, passion, or pride, watch how it touches the children before ye dare to deride. See how through their meekness the Spirit, instant witness of God healing bears, before in thought's gardens your sowing shall choke the ripe wheat with the tares. Through suffering learn ye God's lesson, that intellect holds not the key, which opens the gate of heaven, but childlike humility. Oh, what a wonderful poem. What a wonderful, we were going to read something else, but the bell is rung, so we will end on that beautiful poem. And that's the key out of any sense of mortality, is our humility and our obedience to the Father. Thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you all.
And Diana, thank you from all the way from Berlin. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.